Okay, I think it's recording. It's hard to know when it's actually recording or not. Yeah, it says I'm recording. Okay, so welcome to everybody that might be watching this video. Today I'm going to be chatting to Simone Kessler. Is that your name? Have I got
Correct.
it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I saw it was all in one, wasn't it, on the Instagram? So I had to like try and pick it apart. Sometimes I get it wrong, and it could be a different name. So Anne, you're calling in from US, I believe.
Yes, from Chicago.
Chicago. Gosh, it's all kicking off there in America at the moment, isn't it? It's
It
I mean, I just saw on the news yesterday, it's like, wow, you've got the original Trump and Britain's got little Trump.
well, soon, happily, he will be gone. So, I mean, like what?
Right.
I'm
I,
counting down the days till the 20th. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I think what happens in life, it's just like the pendulum swings, doesn't it? It goes from one to the other, and I think we need some kind of just normality, don't we, around the world, everywhere. Just some calmness and just some decent decisions and let's try and treat our populations nicely. That's how I would run the country. Instead of trying to, cut deals here, there, and everywhere, and all the rest of it. But anyway, so apart from politics, what's the temperature like there in Chicago? Is it cold? Is it hot?
It's cold, but it's nothing that,
Oh, is
like, nothing to
it?
write home about.
It's
It's
taken a
kind of,
bit of a dive. It's taken a bit of a dive in the UK. It's gone down to about 0 now, so it's
oh,
freezing. So I'm sitting in here and I'm like, wow, need to start putting the heating on and stuff. It's really
okay.
a bit.
Yeah.
But
We're used to, I mean, there's snow on the ground, but I'm used to it
oh, you're used to it. Yeah, you've
January.
acclimatized. Yeah, you've acclimatized. But right. So the format of this meeting really is just to get an idea. What I usually do is I just start off and I just usually ask the artist to just let me know what's going on with their practice, how they get their ideas, how many hours they practice, all this kind of stuff. So if you want to just give me an outline of your practice to start with, so then I can get some idea of more behind the artwork kind of thing, and then we can kind of have a chat about that. So if you want to kick off and just give me a bit of an overview of what your practice is all about, that would be great.
Okay, sure. Okay, so my background is in textile design and surface design. So I have a degree, I have several degrees in that, and I own a drapery workroom where we make draperies, high-end draperies, or just draperies for anybody, bedspreads and pillows. And that's what I've been doing for many, many years already since I graduated from college. And so I haven't been doing too much textile design. And then maybe 2 years ago, I decided, like, I'm putting old textiles in frames, and why don't I just paint what I want to paint? And so I started painting on black canvas, because I find that you can get the most contrast if you start with black and then do everything in reverse to let the light come through. So everything I do is on black canvas, except maybe one painting in there was not. But yeah, so, and the idea behind my paintings is I live in Chicago, in the city, and we have all this nature and animals and plants that we kind of take for granted, and they're always here. And so I kind of started to hyper notice them. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, because they were just, like, how beautiful they are. And why can't that be my subject matter? And why do we kind of take geese and all these, like, creatures around us in the background for granted when there's so many of them? So they're kind of my subject. And so
Mm.
that's where I'm coming from. And I have the first painting that I did that kind of started, and it really I don't know, like, it shows, I don't know if you're getting the whole scene, but it shows, the black canvas, and then I go over it, and then I use some kind of gel pens to be able to go over the line of my painting.
Yeah, I see it well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's quite a before I start going into detail about your actual work, that one, your style seems quite naive, not in a bad way, but kind of just, you know, innocent, not highly trained or anything like that. It's quite what's the word? Maybe more towards illustration at this stage. And that was something I was gonna kind of come on to, which is not a bad thing, but it's just kind of with regards to talking about your artistic development, that was just something that I was going to mention. So how many hours a week are you painting?
Well, actually, I also am doing animation at with a group. So that takes up some of the time. So I'm drawing a lot, but the actual painting, since I work, and I have kids, I basically have one weekend day that I do a painting start from finish. And I used to do it, I mean, used to meaning pre-pandemic, every weekend non-fail, like nothing would stop me from doing it. And it would be start from finish. And I wouldn't, you know, like I'd probably 5 hours.
5 hours a week.
5 hours, anywhere from, yeah, I would say average 5 hours a week.
Okay. Yeah. And sorry, I've got some questions up here, and there was one that I was particularly going to ask. I've got some, they're just like taped on the wall. Yeah, so what are your aims in art? What's your aims to achieve with your paintings? Obviously, you're successful with all your other stuff, your textiles and what have you. But with regards to paintings, what are your aims? To get them out there, to sell them, to get into a gallery, or what exactly?
So, I mean, I'm really not very, I'm not, because I do my own business, you know, for draperies, I'm not very aggressive on trying to market things. So I did have them in a couple, I had them in like 3 shows. One was a fashion show where they invited me to just hang my art on the wall with I mean, the other artists there were amazing. And I did the fashion show, and then I did a group show in Evanston in a small gallery that had a lot of people in the show. It had, and then I did an art fair an outdoor art fair. So I wanted to just see, you know, I'm just what happened, and I don't know. I don't know which way I really want to go, to be honest. I just love painting, and I have sold some of the paintings, and I'm, you know, like, I don't know. I'm just doing it because I love it. So that's kind of, I mean, of course I want to be better at what I do, but like, you know, my style being simplistic is kind of because I had to pull back every one of my details. I mean, I am inspired by some people who are illustrators and surrealists, and I don't want it to look like photographs, because that's, I mean, I take photographs. I can take very nice photographs, but I'm trying to, I don't even know, to be honest.
Well, what you're trying to do obviously is create some art, you know. I'm not a big fan. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of my posts or anything like that, but I'm not really a big fan of photorealism anyway. I just think I actually just think what's the point? There's no real point. I mean, I like the kind of, you know, like the Renaissance paintings where they didn't have photographs, where they didn't have cameras. I like that sort of stuff. But even then, even some of the stuff that looks realistic, there's still a lot of art to it. Whereas I see a lot of the photorealist stuff now when I go to the National Portrait Gallery in London when it's open, and I see some of the exhibitions in there, you know, some of the new artists. I mean, it's just like, okay, that's obviously painted from a photograph. What's the point? You know, I just don't see any point in it. So it's interesting that you say that. So how long have you actually been painting for?
Painting, like strictly painting, probably 2 years.
About 2 years.
I've taken classes in school of, you know, well, not even paint. I've not taken painting. I don't know how to oil paint. I just use acrylic because I took a color theory class and we used acrylic. When I did textile design, we used to paint in gouache, and this is like a very flat medium, and I hated it, and I couldn't stay in the lines, and like, I mean, because you have to do these tiny detailed flowers, and it's not I don't enjoy doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to be careful how they try and train somebody to paint or to draw, because it is very much an individual thing. That's why I always, you know, when I speak to artists and they say, "Oh, I've been to college to do this and that," or I speak to somebody that's actually a tutor, I'm always asking them, how do you actually teach somebody to paint or to draw? Because surely that's part of their soul almost, you know, to the way that they will draw or they'll paint is part of their essence, you know, how they will actually move the brush around the page or the canvas. So I don't think there's a way of training. I think some of the universities are good because obviously they'll let you go, they'll give you ideas, give you inspiration and things like that. I think that's the purpose of art schools, to do that. But there are also other methods of training which are like, for example, I mean, I'm a big fan, it sounds quite old-fashioned, but I'm a big fan of life drawing, because I think life drawing is one of those key skills that you're actually painting a nude body and trying to capture that, not necessarily to a life, you know, to make it look like a photorealist, but you're actually trying to create that piece, whatever's in that body that's in front of you, that living body. Whereas I don't think one can do that from a photograph. I mean, I think photographs have a place. They can help assist in certain ways, you know. Obviously, if you're looking for something to enhance a painting of yours and you want to put something in and you want to have a look on your phone to try and find something, that's kind of okay, I would have thought. But to try and copy somebody's face or something like that and just grid it up and then put it on, I think that's just a waste of time. Right, that's quite interesting. The information that you've given me is actually very interesting, and I'll tell you why, because in my mind already I can see that you're quite, with regards to your painting, you're quite a young artist. Yeah.
Yeah,
you know, 2 years painting. I mean, I don't know who said it. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's an urban myth or anything like that, but I do kind of understand it. A lot of galleries, they tend to, there used to be this kind of rumor that they used to look at somebody, an artist, after about 10 years of practice. And I can kind of understand it, because I don't see many artists that I've been absolutely blown away by, that I've seen their body of work and I've thought, wow, that's amazing, and they've been an artist for a year or something like that. I think these things take time to kind of grow. One of the key things that I ask artists is, I mean, you're obviously talking to me today to hear what I've got to say about your work, and we have a chat about your practice and everything like that. But do you know how to critique your work? Like, do you look at your work and think, do you sometimes look at your work and think, is that good? Is it not good? Is it, you know, because sometimes obviously when you're painting, you're close to a piece of work. And at that point in time, when you're creating it, you're thinking, this is brilliant. Yeah. But then do you actually, does that thought stay with you, or do you actually, you know, how does it work with your self-criticism?
I think I've learned, you know, from well, I also, in high school, my major is commercial art. So I think I've learned from doing a lot of project-based work that if and I could be completely wrong on this, but if I'm so focused on perfection, I can't get anything done. So this way, each week I crank out a painting, and then and I don't post every painting I crank out, obviously, but I either feel like I don't feel like it's brilliant or great or not. I feel like it's finished or not. Like I did what I have a goal in my mind of what I'm going to do, what feeling I want to convey, what colors I want to bring out. And of course, like I paint over everything over and over and over again while I'm there. But at the end, I just like leave it, and then it's done. And then, yeah, I mean, I also have people in the house come by and say like, well, that cat's eyes are too far apart, or it doesn't, you know, she looks, that looks like our other cat, not this cat. And so I'm like, okay. And then I go back, you know, and then I go back and think about it. So I do have a house full of critics too to help me out. But like, as far as what you're saying,
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to critique my own work. Like, I didn't even know that. I don't understand that skill, actually. I think that everything is subjective. And I think that art is done when the artist says it's done, because that's what they're giving what they have to give.
Yeah, I would have to disagree with the subjective thing. The thing is with art, it's like a language. And to say that it's subjective, like I've met artists before that, not you, because I think your work is quite good, but I've met other artists where their work has been really, really poor, and then I put a bad review about their work, and then they'll come back to me shouting and ranting, and then they'll say things like, well, it's subjective. But it's not, but it's still, but the thing is, they might say that their friends and family might have said, yeah, this is your work's good, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but it's still bad art. You get me?
I don't. Okay, this just
Yeah,
really quickly. I don't, because what art is for is to convey a message, right? To give someone a feeling, to communicate like a language. But you might not have the experience as the same experience as other people who can look at that art and see something and feel what they're trying to convey. So sometimes I feel like it's a matter of the wrong audience, or someone who is speaking art language but
I
is
think
different.
what you'll find is people that are experienced in art, that have been studying it for a long time. For example, you know, you got some big critics out there and what have you. That's all they do. They're all day, every day, looking at art.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're learning the language, and then two, they're refining their skills at learning the language. Like, for example, I can't speak another language, and that's why it's kind of the same thing with painting and drawing and making and craft and all that kind of stuff, and sculpting. And the thing is, if you don't know that language, then you won't know that language, you know. So I'll be able to babble on, but it won't be German. Do you get what I mean? I'll be able to talk, but it won't be German unless I've learned that language. Now, then what I will start doing is I'll maybe get a German dictionary, German to English dictionary, and then I'll start learning a few words. Yeah. And then slowly I'll be able to start talking German, and then slowly I'll become able to talk German, and then further along the line I'll be able to have a full conversation like we're having now in German. And that's the kind of same thing in art as well. And the problem is there's so many artists out there that just can't speak German. But they don't know. But what they do is I'm not saying you're doing this or arguing for it, but what a lot of artists will hide behind well, it's subjective. But it isn't. It's just that they don't know the language. Yeah. And I know what a piece, like when I see a good piece of art, I'll know what a good piece of art. My difficulty personally is when I'm looking at an artist that has been working for maybe 15, 20 years. They are good, but then I'm like, how good are they? You know, kind of like, I don't know, because it can be subjective at a certain point in time. But many of the artists I'm talking to are new artists, and definitely it's not subjective.
Well, I feel like there can be parts of like that intention gets lost by murkiness. Like somebody is trying to paint a seahorse, and their seahorse doesn't look like a seahorse, so no one's getting that that's what that is. I mean, I can understand that, but I don't, I just think that, like, maybe I mean, all due respect, you're a cis white male telling people what their art should look like to you, but other people from different backgrounds will have different
I get
emotions
what you're
that
saying.
come from
It's not
color.
really about, I never look at art and think about color or sex or anything like that at all.
But
I
you should.
literally, well,
It's
no,
part
no,
of it. It's part of the
I
richness
don't,
of
because I think, I actually think it would be insulting for me to look at your work and think this is the work of a woman artist. Whereas I just look at your work and think this is a work of an artist. Yeah, so I'm not putting you in a box. I'm not giving you a label. The only label I'm giving you is artist. I'm not going to say female artist or black artist, or I don't do that because I think there's too much of that about. And it might be that, you know, I'll get criticized for that, but who cares? I'm not really bothered. But it's more a case of really me being honest about just a piece of art that's in front of me, you know.
right.
And I know there is a big push. There is a big push, and justifiably too, for women artists and black artists, etc., to be included within the, you know, art world as it was. But I still don't want to insult people by just, you know, because somebody's got a big name because they're an artist, female or black person or what have you. I don't want to insult them by going down the route of, you know, having been forced to say their work's good when it actually is not good. So subjectivity is a difficult one, but when the art gets really good, then I'm kind of like, is it great? You know, like I'll look at, for example, Jean-Michel Basquiat. Yeah, I probably
Yeah.
have pronounced his name
I
wrong.
get. Yeah.
And then you're looking at people like Damien Hirst and people like that. You know, oh, no, actually, let me not include them. Let me not include Damien Hirst because I'm not really that big a fan of his work. Let's look at Peter Doig, Basquiat, and and let's say, okay, bit of an old one, Warhol. Yeah, and then you look at those three artists and think, right, okay, I'm not a big fan of Warhol, but if you compare the other two to Warhol, who's gonna in 100 years, who's gonna be remembered as a great artist out of those three? You know, financially, I mean, at the moment, obviously Warhol, people are collecting it, but the is it actually great work? That's the thing. And then people
What
at
was
that level
more
can say,
copied or
well,
influential on other artists
yeah,
too?
this is it. Well, this is it. But then it gets to a stage where you can say, well, it's subjective. Yeah. But for many new artists, I don't think it really is. I don't think there's as much subjectivity. I think that I can tell straight away that this artist, one, they don't know how to critique themselves. Two, their friends and family are telling them they're great, they're not, etc., etc. And you can just tell straight away they don't know how to compose a picture, they don't know how to, you know, the colors don't work, it's messy, it's this, that, or the other. There's so many things. And then you look at, if you go into a modern art museum and you look at, let's just say, you know, let's just say one of the greats, Matisse, for example, or Renoir. They know exactly what they're doing. They've thought about their picture. They've thought about what they're putting in. They know about the colors. They know what works, what doesn't. It fits to the eye, and they know the language. And that's because they're just like working at it day after day after day. You know, there's like the struggle of the painter, and they actually get to that stage where they understand the language, and then whatever they paint, they know instinctively what they're putting on the canvas because they've learnt the language. Whereas a lot of new artists, it's just, I look at it and it's just like, it's just, you know, just a complete mess. And but it's training. I don't see that as a negative. But what I do find as negative is when people come back at me and go, oh, you don't know what you're talking about and blah blah blah, I'm great, and then they just continue making the same stuff and they're not really learning because all they're doing is just trying to, they've got such a fragile ego that they can't see that what they're doing is actually not good. But at some point they might realize, maybe if they carry on doing the same work in 10 years time and then nothing's happening, they might start realizing, well, actually that I was right, you know. So there is, there is the subjectivity and there is subjectivity, and I just think early stage artists, I don't think there is. I mean, you could always get a second opinion, not you particularly, but like a new artist. If I said something, and then an artist comes back to me and says, well, it's subjective, you could always go to a gallery, a decent gallery, and then when they're not busy, you could go in there and ask the manager, take a few pictures and just say, oh yeah, this critic said, X, Y, and Z about my work. Do you agree? And then see what they say. And if they say, no, he's completely wrong, we're going to take you on, well, happy days, but I don't think that's going to happen, So that's where I stand with that. But it is quite interesting. I do get criticized as well, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and this work is great, I'm the greatest artist since Picasso and all the rest of it, but it's not true.
Well, what I find most interesting about what you're doing is bringing attention to people's art. And like what your critique is, you're looking at it with people and pointing out what you feel about it, and then people who are watching your show can extrapolate their own opinions too in this, and so it is it's always a good thing to talk about things.
Yeah, of course. Right, so next step now, what we're going to do is I'm going to share the screen, and hopefully this works. We're going to go and have a look at your work. Okay, so this is your Instagram site, and just having a quick flick through here now. So are there any particular works here that you would, when you finish them, you were like, right, that is the business, this is really a great piece of work? Which would you want me to start on, for example? Which are you most proud of?
To me, each piece has a lot of meaning to me, but I'd rather you look at it from an outsider, point of view of what's conveyed and what's not conveyed.
Okay, let's start. Let me just have a slow flick through first. And
if you hate geese, then you're really gonna not like my stuff.
To be honest, I don't really have a particular subject that I don't like. If it's, if it portrays something to me. I tell you one thing that I said this to another artist. When I scroll over a lot of new artists' Instagram, what I do feel is as if, and I'll say the same thing here, and it might be because that you can see loads of different paintings all together, but it just looks to me like a lot of these are kind of snippets of what could be a bigger piece. And I'm not saying, I want to see the cat picture inside the geese picture, etc. But what I'm saying is, it's like, it just feels to me like they're a bit kind of constrained. They're almost like little snippets of something that could be a bigger, more potentially important work. I don't know.
Some of them are snippets. Some are just focusing on a part of a painting, actually, because that's all we really.
So let's start. So we're looking at this piece here. Has it got a title, this piece? Snowy Day.
It's actually geese in a parking lot is the real.
So how did you capture this then? Was it from memory, or was it from, did you sit there in your car and sketch them, or how did you?
A little of each. I take photos everywhere I go. Yeah. It's a lot of it's imagination. Like the snow is not actually, like I just put in the snow. The geese are different geese that I've seen. Sometimes I sit and sketch geese from my car. I honestly do. And then other times I photograph them. And yeah, it's just, it's a combo.
Yes. It's quite interesting. It's the hard thing for me is when I'm looking on this stuff is to try and see the texture of the actual painting. So this is a painting on canvas. What kind of size have you got here? What kind of size?
On black canvas, and it's this. I don't have that painting here, but it's the same size as this painting. But
okay, right, yeah. Okay. So my initial thoughts are, like if I saw this piece like in a gallery, I'm like thinking to myself, would would I stop? Where there's like, say for example, if there was an exhibition going on or something, would I stop and have a look at it? I'm just trying to think if I would or not. It's kind of quite a nice contrast, but would I take much notice of it?
I'm also horrible at photographing art, so that yellow at the top, which is kind of horrible now that I see it on the screen, is
Oh,
not
this,
there
yeah,
in the picture. It's more of just a very like a subdued sky of
yeah,
the
yeah.
color blue is throughout, but you can't see it on the screen, so it's kind of funny.
It's not bad. I mean, the only thing that I would probably say is like, is this like very textured
Oh, I
here?
can't hear you.
All this, is that very, can you hear me?
Now I can. Yeah.
Okay. Is this part here, is that very textured?
It is. It's all on black can like I said, everything's on black canvas.
Yeah.
So that is textured. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because it goes kind of like from kind of flat to minimalist to textured to kind of a wispy brush mark to kind of, yeah, it's not bad. I don't know. I'm just trying to think how I can kind of explain how to possibly improve upon this. Because I quite like your naive style, I have to say. I quite like it. But there's just something that just doesn't really hold me. And I don't know what it is at this particular moment in time. It might be that it's kind of quite you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of children's storybook or something like that artwork, which is not a bad thing, but it's not gone to the next level. Like I'll see a lot of artists doing sort of illustration, children's art and stuff like that. I mean, it would fit really nicely inside like a children's book.
Which I don't take as a bad thing. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not a bad thing. But when we're looking at the next kind of art level, I don't think it really goes there for me. And how you would do that, I'm not sure with this kind of picture. Maybe more detail on the geese, on the birds. Maybe something. Maybe a better skyline. Maybe the same skyline, but maybe painted better. Might work. It looks quite quickly done in some areas of the windows, but it's quite a decent, I would say, a decent study to capture a scene. But I do like the contrast between the ducks and the white snow. That's quite nice. The only thing that I haven't got is the actual being able to see your paint strokes up close.
Yeah,
So,
which a lot is lost from a
yeah,
tiny.
it is. Yeah, I'll just be honest with you. You know these scoops here that you've done, these like round swirly motions.
The
I
parking lot.
yeah, these swirly things here. Can you see my mouse
Yes.
going over
Yeah.
them? I don't know what they're all about, but I don't know why they're a bit distracting.
Okay.
Sometimes when you see a piece of work, there's actually some. Van Gogh used to do some things actually in some of his works even, and I don't know if he did that on purpose or not, but sometimes he'd put something really distracting in a piece of his work. I know he was known for being one of the greats and what have you, but he still put some very kind of annoying things in his work, and I think he threw them in on purpose personally. Um, but yeah, those kind of things kind of just kind of distract my eye a little bit.
It's parking lot. It's parking lot
Yeah.
like movement. Yeah.
Let's go through this. Now, this kind of work is quite naive. It's kind of like flat.
It,
But I quite like it. I like it. It's almost like a little bit Matisse-ish, how he kind of flattened the image down. And I think that is quite interesting. So it's called, what is it called? The Utopia Drapery Workroom Before the Pandemic. Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? Because it's quite funny, isn't it? Look, and it's almost like there's a seat in the middle anticipating the pandemic. You know, so, yeah, it's like
Well, it's a different type of machine there, but
because
that's
what once upon a
yeah.
time when the pandemic started, I think offices and what have you, they used to have like a taped over, didn't they? So they'd have a person here, this would be taped over, and now there somebody would be sat there. So it's kind of like, yeah, it is. I quite like it. It's quite fun. Again, your style is. And I've seen other artists that have got this kind of style, which is quite naive and quite childish, which is not a bad thing, because obviously tapping into your inner child is something that a lot of artists try to do. Um, yeah, I don't dislike it. I'm just trying to think like, you know, what's the next step for this kind of piece of work? Um, I mean, it possibly is kind of more detail, and um, making a more complex piece of work potentially. I mean, it's one of those things that you could kind of like do a series or something like that, and then present as a gallery or something like that. Have a body of these kind of office spaces where there's people working in there and things like that. That could be quite interesting. Or even of the same, is it the drapery workroom that you know?
Yeah, it's my drapery workroom.
Is
That's
it?
the view
Okay.
from my office, what it used to
All
be.
right, that's brilliant. That's really good. That's really clever as well because it's kind of like taking your own, it's really about you, isn't it? So it's quite good. It's about you, the artist. I quite like that. Yeah, I quite like that. I
And
mean,
the
it's one.
wonderful ladies I work with too.
Yeah, it's quite like that. I mean, you could quite easily give. I bet they'd love to have that on their wall as well, wouldn't they? Because it really fits what they're. It kind of reminds them about good times and chatting with the colleagues and things like that. Days when we used to talk to each other in real life. Yeah, I quite like that. Let's have a look. What's next? Okay, so we've got a cat sitting here. Hmm. I think with this picture, I can kind of see your paintwork here. It looks quite flat and a bit amateur. Um, it's very not just about the shading, but just about the flatness of it. I mean, one artist that I really, really admire is I can't even remember his name. I admire him so much that I can't remember his name. A British artist. He painted all the nudes. We'll do a quiz. A British artist that painted all the nudes.
A British artist that painted all the nudes.
Yeah, he painted
Well,
nudes.
Cezanne painted nudes, but that's
Yes, he
not
did. I can't
British.
remember his name, but what I was going to say about the texture is I'll skip that because this is the problem. I'm not doing any editing as well, so I'm going to make myself look like a real idiot. But the point I was going to make is you've kind of it's all right to be flat, but I think you've got to look at your paint texture. I'm just looking on both screens here. Yeah, I think your paint texture would needs some more, not necessarily layers or anything like that, but it just needs a bit more feel, just to give the picture more dimension. Um, it just looks a bit like you probably could have spent a bit more time on it. Like I don't mind like the drapery at the top. I don't mind this where you've got like a kind of the unfinishedness. That's not a problem. It's just where you've got here, it just looks really kind of, it looks like the painting's not quite done almost. You need to do more work on them cushions, puff
Yeah.
them up a little bit. The cat's fur, probably a bit more on the cat's fur and just make it stand out a bit more. It's quite an interesting image, I have to say. But again, it's kind of like I'm looking at your work and I'm thinking, you know, a really interesting kid's storybook would have a picture like that, that kind of thing, which is again, it's not a bad thing. So I'm saying that it would make a good kid's storybook picture, but at this stage, if that was on an art wall, in a gallery, I'd probably be like, okay, you know, kind of
Okay.
Sunday painter kind of thing. It's okay. It's not offensive. I'm going to try and I won't go on every picture.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to go on it. There's a lot.
Yeah, that's good. I like to see a lot. There's some artists that don't have enough, to be honest, to really get a feel of what they're doing. Yeah, I like this. Caught my eye. It kind of now I've opened it, not so much, but from a
It's
distance.
unfinished. It's
Yeah,
that I did a whole other section and I finished it, but I liked it better before I finished it.
right. Oh, is this actually finished on your site somewhere?
Um, I don't have it on my site
Okay,
finished, but
because
I
I
put all
quite
kinds of stuff in that I didn't think I should have. I kind of liked it at this stage better, and this
okay,
is when
right.
I
I
saved
think
it.
you've
But I
spoiled
do I
that.
like
I would say about this one. I mean, this one caught my eye because why did it catch my eye? I don't. Now I've opened it. I don't like it as
I don't
much
like it as much.
because I
That's
can
okay,
see
close it.
the detail. I'm not overly keen, but I do think you've got something to explore there. I kind of like the houses in the background and also the way that they were painted. I'm not the trees just don't do it for me, you
Okay.
know. I mean, I know you're painting naively, but no tree goes straight like that. It's got all
Well,
kinds of knobbles on it, and it goes, even though it goes in that direction, and it goes, it goes kind of V-shaped. It doesn't really, a tree doesn't like that branch, for example, just would not go straight up like that. It would take,
sadly, the trees are gone because there was a
oh,
tree disease on our block and they
oh
all
my
had to
God,
be
really,
removed.
that's sad. But yeah, but there are if you did them trees better,
Yes.
um and did a nice road here, with a pavement, with the in the same kind of style. I do quite like that blocky style. The tree doesn't look too bad, this one here on the right hand side, and it's got potential. I think it's got potential, you know that kind of style. It's very good. Let's have a look what else catches my eye. Let me go for something I'm not really keen on at all. See that one, I just find it, no, I don't like it. Nothing about it works. It doesn't look like a realistic flower. I don't like the animal, the seahorse. Um, just doesn't really work. But did you have fun painting it?
I did. It's a surrealistic painting from the perspective of nature because that plant would never be underwater. So
No.
like the plant is being discovered on a different like in a different place. It's
Yeah.
underwater and it's called identified sunken
See, there's
object.
certain things about it that I just think don't work. Like, for example, the main thing really in this picture is that big blue space here just doesn't work at all. Because the mind is trying to turn things, unless it's like abstract, is
It's
trying
a
to turn.
flower pot. It is abstract. It's a flower pot of a type of plant, like a succulent that would not be underground. So
Yeah,
that,
it,
yeah,
it's
but
just that maybe it's just the way that it's painted. It just looks like it just looks wrong. Uh,
I agree. I don't like the shape now that I look at it of
you
the
know,
pot.
but it is what it is. Let's have a look what else. And again, you got the naive style, but very kind of flat. I think, what I would say to you, I would say just use a bit more paint. Yeah, splash a bit more on. Don't be don't be too tight.
Well,
Yeah,
it is a different kind of paint. So
yeah,
in reality, it looks very like it's more shiny paint, so it doesn't look so sparse in on the on the
in reality.
canvas. But yeah, it does in the picture. It does look like I didn't use enough paint.
Well, I just think sometimes just let loose a little bit, and just relax and just enjoy it. Don't worry about You know, otherwise you can get a bit kind of like painting by numbers almost. You know, it's like you've done your outline and then you're gonna try and carefully fill it in and things like that. And just, you know, like the edges are a bit tight, but then you've just literally got a blue neck of one color. And it's literally, you know, it's not, it had a potential to be a, you know, a beautiful painting, but you kind of stepped back a little bit and just thought, no, there's my 5 hours done. I'm not doing any more.
I probably did.
You got bored, maybe. I don't know.
That's one of my
But
earlier. That's one of my earliest ones. So yeah, I
yeah,
probably did.
and apples. I always like apples. Always like. In fact, you know what? Apples are really hard to paint well. And you've not done a bad job here, actually. I mean, I do like seeing artists doing apples because they're a really hard test. And I think in your style, you've done quite a good job, actually. Not overly sure about the background. It looks, this kind of rainbow effect in the blue is kind of not worked. Probably would have been better if you'd have just done the same color throughout. I don't know, but that doesn't really work. But I quite like it in a colander with a cup of tea next to it. It's quite interesting. Something to develop. Well, I mean, it's a
That's
positive.
honey. That is honey, but it's apples and honey because that was for
Oh,
Russia.
apples and honey, right? Okay. Well, I didn't know, but it
But it
doesn't
could be
matter.
tea.
It doesn't matter that it's. I'm just thinking tea because it's getting cold out here. But yeah, it's quite nice. Um, let's have a look. What else? Is this a painting here?
Yes. And that is, well, you'll see.
See, I'm looking at your comments here, and you've got, you know, you obviously you've not got many comments, but you fantastic. I mean, that's what she thinks it's fantastic, but the reality is there's some positives to it, but it just this skyline, you know, could have been done a lot better. It just looks a bit flat and a bit kind of, you've just filled it. Like for example, see where my thing goes here. There's something there, but it looks like this is all just one big block, if you know what I mean. And I know you've taken it when it's probably night time or dusk or something like that, but there's still kind of a very virtual edge that you could have put in and
This
just
is all imagination. It's not a photo. Except, I mean, I used the water. I used a reference of a photograph I took of water, but the skyline is 100% made up and not like it's just too. It looks like the Chicago skyline to me. I did
yeah.
not use actual.
It's good to paint. It's good to paint from memory. I don't think that bit's worked. The sky. I mean, I know they're spraying a lot of stuff in the sky at the moment, but I, I don't see the sky much. Look, I've never seen a sky that looks. There's parts of this sky that's all right, like that bit of the sky. And again, it's not about making things look perfect, but it's gotta be not. What's the word? It's not about making something realistic. It's just about making it truthful in a way. I'm not saying that this is a lie, but I'm just saying it just doesn't feel truthful. And this building here is a bit. I mean, maybe you could have used a ruler just to make it straight. That building is definitely warping over.
It is.
But I have to say I do like the sea. I mean, I can't see it in real life, but I think you've really captured it, and it looks really blustery out there. And some parts of this sea are quite no, some parts of this sea are quite interesting. So it's kind of a painting of three parts, isn't it, really? You've got
Yes.
you've got some bits of the sea which are really good. This bit not so good. Then some bits of the sky, you've kind of got the sky in some bits of the top bit, and then here you've just completely lost it. You know, some of the paintwork's not good. But it's interesting. I do like. I just think you need to put more hours in. That's what I think. You
That's
know,
fair.
because I think you definitely develop your work over time. You'll improve your paint, no doubt about it. So what have we got here? See again, you've got a picture that's like, then you know that would definitely work inside a kid's book. I think the paintwork's not good. This bit's not too bad. The way that the shape of the animals, it works, but just some of this, I think, you know, I think you need to, you know, I do like the picture, you know, I do like the colors coming off the black, but I just think that it's just not enough. It's just might need, you know, more detail and texture and stuff like that. I mean, you know, if that animal was standing there, you'd see shades down the side of its leg. You know, you would see like a dark patch, like literally going right down there, wherever the light, well, say for example, if the light was coming from here, you know, each side of his leg and under there would be dark. So it's just basics really, shading and things like that, just to make it not real, but make it truthful. This one here, that's quite a cute picture. And again, I think it's just a case of developing your work, because I think over time, I mean, it's not, you know, it's quite an interesting picture, but I think also here, you know, things like to make it more truthful is like, you know, maybe a bit of surely if that cat really was sitting there, there'd be some kind of shadow. You know, there becomes some kind of shadow and a shadow next to the bag as well. It doesn't have to be like dark, dark, but you could make a kind of, you know, maybe even that kind of color just used there just to bring it out a little bit. And maybe some work on the background. The background goes from it goes a bit greeny here as well. Did you run out of paint?
No, that's photograph. That's
Oh,
definitely
that was your camera.
because you
But
could
yeah,
see in the front part it's just plain.
I do quite like that, the way that you've replicated the cat there and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting. So you've got some good ideas, haven't you? You're not short of ideas, that's for sure. You've got a little penguin standing at the window, which again is like, it really does remind me of, you know, like kids book. Maybe you should put your word out there for, like, you know, with with
Well,
authors and stuff like that. No, I know an author, and I think he paid about, I think for just for a front cover, I think he paid about £1,000. So I don't know, but so it's worth exploring. This is a bit painterly. I like this. So this is a bit painterly. It doesn't look like you've put a lot of paint on. Sometimes it's okay not to put paint on, but I just think it would probably add a lot to your picture if you did, and maybe a bit more detail.
yeah.
Is that a finished piece, this one?
It is. It was a very windy day, and I just was trying to convey the wind, like how, you know, windy it was.
Yeah. I just yeah, I mean, I think if you did this piece after, I mean, what are you, kind of 2 years in now? If you did this piece in about another, say for example, 5 years, and you did this piece again, it would be completely different and loads better.
This was really very early, like, yeah.
So this stuff's very early stuff.
Well, some. No, I don't put them up in chronological order.
Okay.
So. Oh, this was fun for one of my my teenagers wanted a whale that was floating over in space. So I just did that and that really was, I just left that on there.
Yeah. No, the thing is with your work, I think, you know, you're just you know, I'll reiterate, you are 2 years in and you're exploring and you're just basically enjoying it. And I think I can see the enjoyment that how you create these pictures. You know, it is quite enjoyable. It's quite enjoyable to look at them, to be honest. But I think, like I keep saying, you know, as you develop, you'll get better at painting. Simple as that. There's no doubt about it. I'm just going to see if there's any others that I pick out. What's this here? Is this a photo? Is this painting or what?
That's a photo.
Okay.
I'm drawing I was painting the other cat, and then
Right,
that cat
okay.
came to pose.
So is this black canvas you've got here?
Yes, yeah, that's.
All right, okay, that works quite well, doesn't it? So you've got quite a, no, you've got quite a painterly style there on that one. So
And you can see the wall that is in most of my paintings because that's where I paint. So
cool.
that wall ends up everywhere.
Yeah. Do you know something that I would advise you to do? Obviously, when lockdown, and I don't know, have you still got lockdown there?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, we yes and no. Yeah.
We have as well. Okay, so one thing that I would definitely advise is get into as many galleries as you can. Like, I mean, I wouldn't even mess around with contemporary galleries because they're trying to push the boat out in their own different ways. But I would probably go to galleries that are, you know, like museums and things like that. What have you? I would have thought in your city you've got some great museums, haven't
We have
you?
the Art Institute of Chicago, which is an amazing museum that you would love because there's a big
Yeah,
one.
oh, definitely. I've never actually been to America. I'd love to go. But yeah, I mean, I think I would just if I was you, I'm going to get myself down the galleries and just spend as much time as I can, and even copying some of the great works there as much as you can. You know, just literally go in there with your sketch pad and just copying some. Because by doing that, what you'll do is you'll learn the language, but also things like the background, you know, that green background in that you've got there. I mean,
Yeah.
you can really work that in well to your paintings, but it's not just about painting a flat green black background. And you'll see it in a lot of the modern art, the modern old artists. You'll see how they've approached it, and you get your nose really near the canvas, and you'll see how they've done it. And some of them you'll take back, you'll borrow some of how they've painted, and you'll learn how they've painted it, and you'll take it back into your own work, and it will massively improve what you're doing because you've got the basics there. I mean, you can paint, obviously, you can draw. So it's just a case of taking your work forward with regards to, you know, process, composition, and making your work more truthful. And I think you'll push it out there, you know, and it probably won't take that long, but you do need to put more hours in, I think.
Oh, the fish one you might like. Or what?
Where's the fish one? Oh, this one.
Yeah, you can't
I'll be
really.
very honest with you, I don't.
Okay, you already don't.
No, that's why I scroll through it.
Okay.
I mean, I do like fish, but you know, even when I go to an aquarium, this might be a bias against fish. Even when I go to an aquarium, I'm like, oh God, not another bloody fish.
Okay.
I tell you where I have liked fish, if I've ever been snorkeling. I mean, I'm not a great swimmer, actually. A story was that I actually jumped off the boat and I nearly died, and they had to come and rescue me, and that was a bit scary.
That sounds
And embarrassing as well.
cool.
But I went when I finally got my life jacket on. I did a bit of snorkeling, and I saw some fish, you know, tropical fish and stuff like that. That was amazing, seeing them in thing. But like just one fish there, I don't know if I can really say much about that. No, I'm not really keen. Not really keen. Um, Interesting birds, but again, you know, like this one here, this is the sort of thing where I just think it could be, you know, if you had a big painting, so you had you know, you did like a big painting, you had all your naive stuff going in, you had people walking in the parks and things like that, you had a children's playground or something like that, and then on the right hand corner you would have this. Do you see what I mean? It's like it doesn't feel like it's not where you probably will be in sort of like 5 years time once your compositions start to grow. And I'm not necessarily saying you have to fill up a composition, because some great paintings they just had like a person or something like that, but I just see in your work a bit, you know, like they could just really grow. But a piece of work like this probably wouldn't be a single piece of work. It for me it looks like something that could be, you know, a part of another work somewhere, like, you know, in the corner of the picture somewhere. It's not a big piece of work. That's an interesting. Is that a drawn cat? Drawn? Painted?
That's my cat.
Cat. See, that's quite an interesting style, and you know, yeah, I quite like that. You've put a bit of texture, you put a bit of work in that. It almost seems like You know this cat, don't you? I quite like the way that you've done the white here. The cat's, I like the way that the cat's got a slightly, you've drawn the eye slightly higher. So it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like a cartoon cat in a way. I mean, in real life, is her eye, is that eye bigger than that one?
No.
No. No, it's just the way that she's got the, you know, that bit's kind of risen as well. It's almost like she's like thinking, what the hell are you doing now? You
Yeah,
know,
the look.
it's got a good look on, but that's not, you know, that's not a bad thing to put a bit of personality into a pet. But yeah, I think this is a good start. But again, there's some things that I can see on there where I just think, you know, a few years down the line, you could create a really good piece out of this. And you know, if you were to put this in front of you know, one of the great artists, you know, one of the great French artists, great French modern artists, like you know, Matisse or someone like that, just imagine what they might have done with this piece, you know, to turn it into something, you know, really amazing. So, you know, whether it's kind of, you know, doing a kind of wallpaper behind it or something, just to sort of really, you know, make people go, wow. But it's quite nice. It's tame. It's quite nice. Let's have a look what else. This is interesting, but I can't. Yeah, it's more.
This is when the rover landed on Mars. I was just
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I quite liked it before I clicked on it and saw the detail. There's some aspects of it that I quite like, where you've got the, you know, you've got kind of more of a heavy paint, and then you've got the black outline and stuff like that. Some of it's good, some of it's promising. This bit not so good, but quite interesting as well. Two moons as well. Let's see what else is on here. This is the last one then.
yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's have a look at this. Yeah, quite. Again, I quite like the naive style, but you could really develop this in this piece of work. You could have really developed it into something really good, just by maybe a bit more attention to detail, you know, and maybe not being in such a rush to finish it. Well, I think that's often the case, isn't it? You know, it's like getting near the end and it's like, oh, I just want to finish this now. And it's like, you know, you don't necessarily have to finish it in one sitting or two sittings. You can, you know, you can go back to it and you
Yeah.
can change and you can, you know, but
Yeah,
it's
I
just,
have it in the drawer. It's still sitting there in a giant drawer, so I could always go back. What
yeah.
would you do to it, though?
Huh?
What would you do to it?
Well, like for example, this swan here is just completely white. Now, if you look at a swan, they've got yellows in them. They've got, you know, you can see like little bits where they've got the feathers. They're not just like one bright white color. Um, there's this thing here. I know we have loads of these in the UK in train stations and stuff like this.
This is a
Uh,
UK train station, by the way.
is it?
Yes,
Oh,
I
is
took
it?
a
Well,
trip.
there we go. Brilliant. Um, so so I know these really well. You know, you could if this was like kind of dusk, you could kind of you could turn this light on. You could do so many things with it. You know, I don't think you've got the what's the name right as well. Look, you've got you see
The
the
perspective.
perspective. Yeah, you've not quite got that right. And again, in this kind of art that you're doing, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to still be right. Otherwise, it's going to look kind of, you know, because there's certain things that just catch your eye and you just think, all right, okay. And it's not about, like I said, not about being perfect, but it's about being, getting the truth of the thing. And like this kind of thing, this is usually, it's not so bright pink, but you'd get like shadows all over it. So there'd be shadows here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, I
Uh,
just love the pink, though. I wanted it to be
yeah, yeah.
pink.
Well, that's it. At the end of the day, that's art. You've got to paint what you love. But I just think to enhance the picture, to enhance the picture, you could just do so much to it, and bring it out. Whether if you wanted to keep that pink, fine, but you could do other things to it to, really bring it alive. I mean, it's, like all of your stuff, it's a good start, and I think the key thing is just to keep going with it. And like I tell a lot of people, you know, when the galleries open again, just get out there and just go up to the work, great work, and then just scare yourself, and just, and walk out of there. And it is a hard feeling for artists, to go in and see the great artists, because at the end of the day, you obviously want to get really good at it, because you wouldn't be painting all these pictures if you didn't. So, if you got out there to the galleries and just went in there and just looked at all the work, and and just compare yours to it. I mean, obviously there's probably not going to be a Matisse with one of these animals on, but it's not necessarily the animal. It's more a case of like looking at his texture, looking at the way he applied his paint, looking at the composition, looking at you'll just learn so much. I mean, some of the impressionists, you see, this work's quite impressionist, but if I'd have created this, I'd probably go and seek out some of the impressionists. I bet you've got some good impressionists inside your museum there. And just go and see, take it on an iPad or something, it's big, and then just hold it, when nobody's looking, just kind of hold it next to it and just sort of, right, okay, that's why theirs was great and mine's just, kind of, no, I'm not going to say bad, but why yours needs developing and theirs is a masterwork.
They started it. Like they're there because they were original to come up with the idea too. So that like a lot of artists you talk to might be defensive because they kind of want to break away from some of the things that they've already learned. But I definitely do not compare mine to the great impressionists. I just at all. Like it doesn't even occur to me to eat apples and oranges.
Again, I agree with what you're saying, but just but it's not, I don't believe it to be quite right. I agree. No, I agree with the essence of what you're saying, but there's some parts of that which are not quite right. For example, the great artists like, Picasso, Matisse, and all the rest of them, Cézanne, they would go to the museums, they would go to the Louvre, and then they would like seek out their masters. Right. Yeah. So it's not about comparing and saying, it's about holding your work up and saying, well, why is my work not as good as theirs? Obviously it's not, but what have they done differently? And it's not about trying to copy them, it's trying to take it forward. So you'll go forward with your style, but it's like, well, how do you get there? For example, look at this one in the sky here. It's weak, and there's a lot of parts here are weak, whereas you've kind of like done this kind of Van Gogh-y kind of, lines, quick lines. So go and find some Van Gogh and see how he did it really, really well. And you can even find stuff online. You see his sketches and things like that, and you'll be like, wow, that's amazing. But a lot of the stuff that he did was very simple. It was very simple, but he just did it well, and his use of colors and stuff like that. And the thing is with his use of colors is it's all right to use like one or two colors because there's no set rules in art, but it's just the fact that, if he was doing this painting, he would have filled this with blues. His lines would have been blues and greens and grays and yellows and all the rest of it, whereas you just literally painted a green background and then you've like dotted it with the first color that's come to mind, rather than
fall in Chicago, like the color, I don't have the lush blues and greens in reality, to stay true to it. This is more like windy and kind of what do you call it, like fall muddy.
Yeah, well, even full muddy, you've got variations within that full muddy. So
Yeah.
within that full muddy, I guarantee you, not every single one of those little grass strokes or whatever, I bet you everyone's got a different color to them.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
go
true.
close and have a look. And same with the trees. They're not all just going to be like that color yellow or that color pink or what have you. I mean, obviously there is artistic license to do these kind of things, but it's just trying to develop your work. But I definitely think if I was you, go down the museums and just compare your work, sketch the work is really, really helpful. You know, going into a gallery and ask, I don't know if your gallery has a license to paint. I'm not, does it or not? Are you
I don't think they would allow me to paint
no.
in the gallery, but I could still like look closely at
Yeah.
everything and
Well,
sketch. I just haven't been there for a
some
while.
galleries do. Some galleries do allow artists to like paint the masterpieces.
Yeah,
But if they don't, you're allowed to take your sketchbook. I'm sure of that,
yeah,
and literally just sketch away because the more you pick a great work, something that you really love and something that inspires you, and then and something that you know is a masterpiece. You go there, you sketch it, and as you're sketching it, things will start to click in your mind. You'll be like, all right, that's how they positioned, that's why they positioned it. And it's like subconsciously as well, you'll be learning the language of it, and then suddenly you'll be like, right, okay, it's not an accident how these artists got great. I mean,
yeah.
a lot of it's hard work, but also they were learning from their great masters. So for example, you know, Cezanne and all that, like, they'd be looking at Titian and artists like this who had studied also the color composition and all the rest of it in detail. And then obviously they'll take their style and take it to their next level, So I think that would be really helpful for you. But it's overall, I think it's a good review, really. You've got a lot of ideas, you're painting nature scenes and stuff like that. And some of them quite, like this one, I would definitely think about developing ideas like this because I think this is really quite interesting. I think this is your best work, personally. Um, and I just think it's part of you. It's it 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 just fits so well with the time without being so, even without the title, you can kind of see, look, somebody's missing. They're sitting there doing their drapery, and you're almost imagining the conversations that they're having. So I'd go down this kind of route, really. This would be really good and fun, maybe, to do some more pieces like this. But overall, I think it's a good start for where you're at. I see a lot of artists that have been painting for like, more than 2 years, 5 years and what have you, and they're not as good as you. So I think it's quite positive, you know?
Well, thank you. I appreciate your opinion and your critique and your help
Yeah.
and
Well,
attention toward everything. That's
yeah. I mean, what I'll do, what I'll do after today is just keep an eye anyway and see what else you're posting and see if see if you listen to any of my advice or not.
I
But at the
will.
end of the
I
day,
think I will. Actually, I plan on listening to you. Maybe not going in and painting because in the museum because they might not let me, but
no.
just looking at some of the people that I admire and how they got their technique and build from that rather
Yeah.
than just trying to be original. I mean, even though I love like this artist Gertrude Abercrombie, she made like I saw something of hers in the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago and I'm like, I need to paint. I want to do this. I feel like what she's doing is, where I want to go. And that inspired me. So
Yeah.
I need more inspiration. It's
Yeah,
just the,
definitely.
yeah,
And I think also, it's a critique, but at the end of the day, you can see that you're enjoying what you do.
yeah,
But but I do think when you get to your level where you can hold a brush, you can draw. I do think that you probably will find more enjoyment if, for example, I mean, looking at this one, which has got a lot of potential. If you if you if
yeah,
you made this into a great piece of work, you'd be a lot happier,
yeah,
because you've obviously spent time thinking about it, but you don't want to be wasting your time. You want to be you want to be nailing it. You want to be making this into a great piece of work, which I think you probably will over time. But it's just more, it's just about learning and just going into galleries and, you know, I mean, it might even be sitting in front of a tree and sketching it, for example.
Yeah. That's probably, I could do that now. So that probably would be a good start too.
Because a lot of it is about repetition and what have you, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's. I mean, I'm looking at you like a new artist, so I would probably say my overall review is it's a good start.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So I will log off now, and thank you very much for your time, and thanks for sharing all your work with us. And I'll keep an eye, and I'll share this video in the next couple of days.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was nice to
Take
talk
care.
to you. Take
And to
care.
you. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.